Dr. Anthony Harper here, blessed to be in Jerusalem, Israel. A real honor. And I'm with Professor Stern. And what is your full name and what you do from an educational perspective?
Okay, my full name is Zilla Sinuany-Stern. I am a professor emerita at Ben Gurion University of the Negev in the Department of Industrial Engineering and Management.
Mm-hmm.
I studied in Israel for my 2 degrees, the bachelor and the master's at Tel Aviv University, and my PhD in the United States at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. And I came right back to Israel after my graduation in 1978.
Mm-hmm. Some great education experiences and with training, with teaching. And you, I know, have a lot of concern about Israel being misrepresented. I keep thinking about the word propaganda, portraying Israel in a non-historical way. But regarding the colonialism, you've heard that concern about who would be the occupier. So who are the colonialists? The Arabs or the Jews, as far as here in Israel?
Okay, in historical perspective, and also in the situation today, the Arab countries are the only ones who are occupying the Middle East. The Arabs and the Muslim countries. And there's only one Jewish state. So it's an absurd to call this little tiny Israel, the only Jewish state in the world, a colonial country, just because there is a group of Jews who came from Europe, because the majority of the population in Israel are Jews from the Middle East, Jews who were always have been here. They never were in Europe or anywhere else. Jews, all those 2,000 years were in the Middle East, all over, in Egypt, in Iraq, in Syria, in North Africa. In every country there were Jewish communities throughout all this period. How did the Islam came about? The Muslims learned from the Jews about the belief in one God.
I understand, yes.
That's how. So there were Jews here, and there are Jews. Until 1948, till the establishment of the State of Israel, those Jews lived in the Middle East, throughout the whole Middle East. And these Jews were expelled from those countries in 1948, and they ran away, most of them to Israel, and others to all over the world. These Jews compose more than 50% of the Jewish population in Israel today.
Along with that, I hear of the word occupier or apartheid state. So for those that would call Israel an apartheid state, what would you say to them?
It's an absurd to call a country that 50% of its Jewish population is Jews from Arab countries as apartheid. You look at me, do I look to you as a colonialist?
No.
My parents came from Yemen.
Right. Yeah.
Am I a colonialist? With my family, the Jews that came from Egypt, Jews that came from Iraq, how can they be colonialist? And on the other hand, within Israel, leave alone the Palestinians, there are about 2 million Arabs, citizens of Israel. And they get rights even more than the Jews. They don't have to go to the army, they go straight to the university. They get fellowships to study in the university. Half of the doctors in Israel are Arab citizens. Most of the pharmacists are Arabs. They are in everything, in building, in every area, in computer science. And the world doesn't know it.
I was at Hadassah Hospital, and I saw the reality there about how Arabs are treated. Even terrorists are being treated at Hadassah Hospital. The Jewish people are treating people, their enemies, with love. Contradictory what people portray Israel as mean and trying to occupy and all that, but it's really their land that was entitled to them.
Exactly, and this is part of the Arab countries and the Arab League, the organization that organizes the Arab countries.
Yes.
All over this period from 1948, when many of them got the independence, they became tyrannies.
Yes.
They treat their own population terribly. That's why we had the riots in 2011 in those countries where the population, and this is not terrorist, the regular population had a revolution against their own leaders.
I heard of the Arab Spring.
The Arab Spring, exactly. The Middle East, after the spring, the summer comes. The summer is terrible in the Middle East.
Yes,
and that's exactly what happened in those countries. This spring became a chaos. In Syria, they are still in the midst of this chaos. They created many refugees, more than the refugees of 1948.
I wanted to ask you about, regarding the apartheid issue and people portraying Israel as an occupier. What is the threat a Palestinian state dividing Israel is to Israel's security?
We see this threat every day now, since 2005, when the Israelis left Gaza Strip and withdrawn its Jewish populations from Gaza Strip, because Arabs can stand to have Jews in their territories. We can stand to have Arabs in our state, but they can't stand to have Jews in the last 70, 100 years in their own countries. Jordan had no Jews. Saudi Arabia has no Jews. And what happened in Gaza Strip?
Right, we know when they withdrew that it got
after
dominated.
Israel withdrew out of the Gaza Strip, what happened is, first of all, they fought between themselves. And Hamas took over. The Hamas, the terrorist organization in Gaza Strip, which is ruling till this day in Gaza. Yes. They killed all the police and the administration of the Palestinian authorities in Gaza. They threw some of them from the windows of the high-rises down. They killed them, simply killed them. They were Arabs, Muslims. They killed them. And then they became strong and strong, and they started fighting with us. They threw missiles on us. By the beginning, around themselves. As the weapon that they got from Iran became more and more sophisticated with missiles and so forth, they reach even Tel Aviv. Sometimes Tel Aviv and the airport are down. Even towards Jerusalem last year. And from time to time we have little wars with them. And it's a situation that we never had before when we were ruling that area. And no more, we are not going to do this thing again. Every land you give them becomes a land of terrorists.
Well, I hear this so often, a push to divide up Israel with the Palestinian state, whether it's from the White House, amongst the media. And if you could speak, with President Biden and other people at the White House, what would you say to them about, their desire to divide Israel?
Israel was divided many times. First of all, by the Balfour Declaration. The Jews were promised the land of Israel, the old land of Israel, which was the two sides of the Jordan River. And When the Arabs heard that, they did riots all over the Middle East, and the Saudis had all kinds of claims. So the sons of one of the Saudis' big leaders at that time, in 1917, got Jordan area. More than half. Jordan is the bigger half of the promised land. The bigger half, if you look at the map, you see the size of Jordan. It's much bigger than Israel. They got that part, and they left the other side, the west side of the river till the Mediterranean, for the Jewish people. And they claim that they are going to bring in Jews from all over, mainly Europe, to Israel, and the British called it Palestine, like the Roman called it 2,000 years ago.
Yeah,
that's not the name of the Arabs. The Arabs just adopted it years later in order to for their propaganda, for their propaganda against Israel, and they call themselves Palestinians as if they are not Arabs.
I've heard
but
it said,
they are Arabs.
I've heard that it said if you repeat a lie enough, that people will believe it.
Exactly.
And accept it as truth.
Exactly.
So there's a real challenge to educate people, to inform them of the history about Israel, what Israel really is, and it's definitely not Palestine from a historical perspective. But do you have a website for people to learn more about what you do? And
maybe I should put what we are talking about now on the paper, because I'm not in the public relations of of the government. I'm not connected with the government.
Okay.
I am just a citizen, regular citizen.
So, do you have something on the internet you want me to refer to for people to learn more about?
I can refer you to all kinds of materials that others wrote, which I learned from. It's not my specialty. I told you I'm in industrial engineering and management. Mm-hmm. My job is to flourish the country. My tens of thousands of students are doing wonders out there.
Oh, I bet.
And I learned it from the Americans.
Wow.
When I came to America to learn what made America what it is, the best country in the world, the most advanced, I found out that education, higher education, is the key for success of a country. And I devoted my life for higher education.
So what is your final message that you are wanting to share with people in this interview?
Yes, I wanted to say that it's the interest of the Arabs and the Muslim world to have a strong Jewish state in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. A state that is very advanced in technology, in many areas, and in democracy. Israel is the only democratic countries in the Middle East, real democratic, not what those tyrannies call in the Arab countries. And Israel will be a blessing for the Middle East, bringing the Middle East back to its central duty in the world, as the center of the world, as the Middle East used to be in the ancient times when a Jewish state existed in this area. Mm-hmm. Ever since all the diaspora, all those years, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, the Middle East was like a remote place in the edge of everything. And today, with Israel, if the Arabs will work with us and the Muslims, the Middle East will become the best area in the world, the center of the world. We have the energy, we have the best people, we have the best education. Join us. The Arab countries that realize that are doing peace with us. They know what they are doing. Mm-hmm. And this is the future of the world. If there will be a strong Jewish state, this will be a big blessing for the whole world.
Well, I agree that it's important to bless Israel. It goes along with what I know in Genesis 12:3. Blessings for those that bless Abraham and his seed, which is Israel, and there is a curse for those that curse Israel. So I see very clearly that Israel has been blessed. The whole world has been blessed because of Israel. And we invite people to pray for you and your family and everyone here and for the peace of Jerusalem. And thank you for sharing your concerns and this important information.
Thank you.
Great to join you from Israel, from the beautiful city, the blessed city, Jerusalem.
We read news every day, news that's informative but rarely encouraging. The Intermountain Christian newspaper aims to change that. They present the news you need to know, from what's going on in your community to your world, with encouraging words, motivation, and the resources you need to make positive changes in your life. What is your local government doing that you need to know about? What's happening in your community you need to be a part of? Whether it's a story from your neighborhood, a national story, or an encouraging word, you'll find biblical issues of everyday life in the Intermountain Christian newspaper. Intermountain Christian News is produced and supported by the work and donations of individuals and churches. You'll find it at churches, Christian bookstores, by subscription, and online at imcnews.org. To find out more about supporting this local resource, go online at imcnews.org or call Intermountain Christian News in Boise, Idaho at 208-703-8688. The Intermountain Christian News, a voice sharing the truth on matters dear to people's hearts.